everyone. Welcome to It's Your Money. I'm Joanne Morgano, and I'm joined by my co-host, Martin Saltzman. We are both financial advisors and have over 51 years of experience working with our clients in financial planning and overall wealth management. Today, our topic will focus on family law. But before we get started, the markets have been jittery, and Martin's going to tell us all about it.
Needless to say, they sure have. And Joanne, thanks again. It's always good to be with you this time of our week in our show. We have a great guest today too, so we're looking forward to hearing about that. But first, our viewers, we have a lot of volatility out there right now, and let's start with the indices. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was actually over 35,000 on Friday, and now we've actually gone below 34,000, roughly 33,800. NASDAQ has had probably a greater bit of volatility. Why? Because we have all the technology stocks there, the Amazons, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Apples, et cetera, et cetera. The FANG stocks. So it appears as though there's a hard rotation from some of these high-flying growth companies into other things. And we might touch on that before we get to our guest. But we have seen gold pick up, okay? Not a surprise when the U.S. dollar index is going down. There's an inverse relationship between gold, silver, copper, platinum, palladium, zinc, etc. So we've seen a lot of the metals pick up at the expense of the technology stocks that were all the rage for the last few years, okay? Also, oil has seemed to have gone up. One, because we just had an event with the Colonial pipeline issue. So we have a supply and demand issue there. Of course, we had the Keystone issue, which started, I think, the whole thing rolling, So where were we today on oil? About $66 a barrel or so. So we are seeing some things. We're also seeing the 10-year Treasury tick up. It was 1.56%, and going into today, it's around 1.64. So look, if you haven't done a refi, don't wait. Do your refi, because if rates start ticking up, you're going to pay more, for that refi. So now's a great time to do it. Some of the really hot button topics out there are inflation. The Fed seems to be in denial. They seem to think that inflation is transitory, and you'll hear a variety of Fed governors say, well, they're not worried about it. But I got news for you. The CPI came out this morning. It was 4.2% versus the 3.9 from, I guess, a year ago. And it's moving higher. Although, actually, they might have estimated 3.9. It came in at 4.2. So it's hot.
It's hot. And inflation is a sneaky, creeping killer of your money. So
sure
you
is.
have to watch it. And people are going to have less discretionary income. And that's going to be a factor.
Yeah, and one thing about inflation, so our viewers know, it's basically too much money chasing too few goods, okay? And what happens is when you have a lot of money chasing something and there's not enough of it, what happens? The prices start going up, right? We've seen that in real estate, right? We know that there's not as big a supply on the market in real estate. Demand seems to be there, and therefore we're seeing price hikes. We're seeing wood and lumber for building houses has gone up quite a bit. I mean, it's gone up, I think, about 200%. Okay, and of course oil, we talk about the price at the gas pump. But we also have, and we've been talking about this for a long time, commodity agricultural inflation. When you go to the supermarket now, you're paying more for things. I mean, I'm not there as much. My wife tends to go more, but I hear it from everybody,
it's the cost of goods being transported. So there's a lot of factors for it.
And the other thing is the stimulus issue. I mean, we're giving people $300 a week. It looks like it's going to continue till September. And by doing that, we're disincentivizing people to work. So we have a labor issue out there. And it's not just New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania. It's going on everywhere. People can't get people to work. I mean, I heard Wawa might be, reducing their hours. Some of the restaurants are cutting their hours. They're
Well, and some states,
They're looking for jobs.
some states are offering $1,200 to get people
I
off
heard
of
that.
the
I
enhanced
heard that,
social,
yes.
the enhanced unemployment benefit.
Exactly.
Come back to work and we'll give you $1,200. So it's a big, big issue for employers. So Martin, anything else? Because we've got a
Oh, my
big show with
gosh.
our guests.
You know, we could go on and on and on, but, you know, and we are worried about our clients and risk and all of that. Of course, we always say, if you have profits, don't be afraid to take them. Use stop orders to protect yourself. Don't just watch your investment go up in value and then do nothing and then watch it come down. That's all I want to say. So, I mean, we got to get to our
All right,
guests.
let's get to our guest.
Tremendous guest today.
Okay. Our guest today is Evan Weinstein. He is a partner at Weinstein Family Law in Short Hills, New Jersey, and is a recognized leader in New Jersey's Family Law Bar. Evan focuses his practice on marital dissolution, typically representing high net worth individuals in complex disputes related to child custody, alimony and child support, property distribution, business valuation, prenuptial and postnuptial agreements, and even same-sex partnership issues. So I want to welcome you, Evan. It's great to have you
It's
here.
a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to interviewing you. Our audience loves a little personal story, so tell us why you got involved in family law.
When I realized when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old that I was never going to play third base for the Yankees, I had to start thinking about what kind of profession interested me. My father is a practicing attorney still, and I grew up in a household that looked at the legal profession as a profession that was a privilege to work in. And I would say since the time I was 9 or 10 years old, I pretty much believed I was going to practice law in some capacity. I didn't know that I was going to do family law, but I knew that I was going to be a lawyer.
So next question, why did you go into family law?
That's a really good question. When I went to law school, I was under the impression that I wanted to practice criminal defense law or perhaps personal injury law. But then after my second year of law school, I had taken a class in family law. And I realized that the issues in family law, the personal issues, the personal nature of the litigation was something that really interested me. And it wasn't just personal issues, but there were also financial issues involved as well. And that was something that appealed to me. And my father was a practicing matrimonial attorney in New Jersey. And I decided to work with him after my second summer of law school. And we've been together ever since. And it's been wonderful.
That's nice
for
to
both
hear.
of us.
I know, that's really, really nice to hear. I mean, you know, divorce is one of the toughest things that I encounter with my clients, and probably you do
Sure.
too.
For sure.
Sure.
So having attorneys like you to guide them is really important. Maybe you could just talk to us a little bit about the psychological and component of it when you deal with clients, and then we'll
Sure.
get into the financial aspects.
Divorce is an emotional roller coaster. The highs are really high, the lows are also very low. And so I view my job as one of educating clients into making good decisions, decisions that are based on sound legal principles, but also to be rational, to use common sense, and to be happy. Because when it's all said and done, they're going to have a life after this. And they have to look at that really as being their objective. And that's how I practice.
Yeah, so that's the emotional side.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the procedural side. So if somebody's contemplating a divorce,
Sure.
they come and see you. What do they need to do?
When they come and see me, they don't need to bring anything with them. For the first consultation, what I like to do is I like to educate my clients as to the process of divorce. I then like to advise them as to the nuts and bolts issues. In most cases, there are very similar nuts and bolts issues like child custody, like the issue of spousal support, like the issue of child support, equitable distribution of your assets. Those happen in most cases. The nuances are difficult to pick up right away, but through discovery, through learning about the financial issues involved, I'm then able to tailor my practice to their needs.
Evan, I applaud you for what you're doing. And prior to us coming on the air, I found it very enlightening that, you know, it makes you feel good to try to help people.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, not everybody's like that. You know,
Yeah.
so a lot of people are in it for the money.
I mean,
and,
I do realize that I'm not a therapist and I'm not trained, although my wife is a clinical social worker.
Okay.
But I do believe that I have an obligation to help people. And I want my clients to be in a better position when they're through with my representation of them than when they came and first saw me.
In the case of a divorce, you know, how long does something like that take? I know you're going to say it varies and all of that, but geez, you know, we have people asking us, you know, things aren't really working out in my marriage, and, you know, they have complications and children and houses and what have you. Is there a timeline?
People ask me all the time, and that's probably the most common question that I get on the first consultation,
Okay.
is how long is this going to take and how much money is this going to cost me?
Right.
And typically, it's impossible to give any kind of time reference because it largely is based on how litigious both litigants want to be. There's also the component of the court system, and with COVID now, there's a significant backlog, and so any real litigation, meaning serious litigation, is kind of put to one side right now. But if people want to resolve their case, if they want to do so in an amicable way, which is a way that I would recommend, a divorce doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to take a very long time, and quite frankly, it doesn't have to cost that much.
So, you know, you mentioned COVID and that and having cases go to get litigated. Can you just tell our viewers what you've had to deal with because of COVID? How were you able to meet clients? How were you able to talk with attorneys? I mean, the opposite side or judges. But, you know, I just got the message that we have to wait for that answer. So we're going to keep our viewers waiting.
So that's a big topic,
We'll
though,
be right
COVID-19.
back. Join us for the second half of the show.
Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
This plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
Welcome back to It's Your Money. We have Evan Weinstein here with us, and we're talking a little bit about divorce, the impacts of it, the emotional, financial part, and our last question was about COVID-19 and how it's impacted Evan with his clients and clients overall. So Evan, it's yours. Take it away.
I will say this, the state judiciary has done an excellent job at managing the safety risk of not being in the courthouse and the day-to-day operations of the court, meaning that the court system has to move forward. We can't just be stagnant and not exist. So the administrative office of the courts and the Chief Justice have really gone to great lengths to make the current situation as functioning and as practical for everyone as possible. And on a day-to-day basis, I do miss going to the courthouse. I do miss talking to the court staff. I do miss the interactions that typically that I would have in the courthouse.
Sure.
However, I will say that from a litigation standpoint, my cases are pretty much similar. I'm able to argue motions. I'm able to have case management conferences. I'm able to practice law. And for me, that's a great privilege.
So when clients come to you, what documents should they bring to you after that initial consultation?
Generally speaking, after the initial consultation, I will give them what's called a case information statement. That is a very difficult document to fill out because it asks for a whole bunch of financial information. It asks for your income, your budget, your assets, your liabilities, and pretty much anything else financially related to a divorce. And at that time, what I like to do is I typically ask my clients as to whether they have any kind of financial advisor involved or the name of their accountant, because I need to get a better sense as to what is going on with their finances. And I sometimes like to speak to their own accountant to find out if they have any insight, but sometimes that could be problematic because the accountant usually is the accountant for both parties. So you have to be sensitive to that.
So we recently had a guest on, and she was a forensic tax accountant. Do you ever employ those individuals to help you out?
All the time.
Okay, so why?
In any case where there has to be a valuation of a business, we need to utilize a forensic accountant to determine the value of the business, to determine the cash flow that the owner is receiving, because cash flow is a very important part of all support issues. And we need to get a sense as to what's going on. And so by using an accountant, they're able to make a evaluation of the business, and that is something that is necessary because New Jersey is an equitable distribution state, meaning that every asset that is acquired during the course of your marriage is going to be subject to distribution. And with businesses specifically, that if someone had a business before they were married and they worked that business during the marriage and that business then had an increase in value, that increase in value is subject to distribution as part of their divorce.
Let's talk about the quadro. I've
Sure.
had some clients that have come to me and they've been divorced and did not have a quadro, and they were able to apply for it after, but tell us more.
Okay, so a quadro is a qualified domestic relations order, and it pertains to any defined benefit plan, any defined retirement benefit plan. And it's usually done at the conclusion of the divorce, where people have agreed as to a value of what their retirement assets are going to be. The court needs something called the quadro, and it's drafted by usually an expert, and they determine the nature of the plan, and they determine how to divide that asset. So in a scenario where person A owns a retirement plan,
A 401k.
401k
Right.
or something like that, and they're married to person B, the quadro divides that asset in whatever manner that they have chosen to divide it.
And then that
And
asset
that-
can transfer right
That
over.
asset becomes the separate property of the other spouse.
Right, and then
That portion of that
Right, and then they don't have to wait until they're 59 and a
Correct.
half to get that distribution.
asset. Yes, correct.
Evan, I had a question for you. You use the words fair and equitable, and, unless you're really in the area of matrimonial law or you've contemplated divorce or gone through divorce, we hear these terms fair and equitable. And it seems as though every state is different. Some states like Florida seem to be more liberal with their laws, divorce laws and assets. New Jersey seems to want to use that fair and equitable, whatever you want to call it, 50-50. Is it because, and I'm not trying to be sexist, of course, is it because in the past more women stayed home, raised a family, the man, let's say, was working? It wouldn't be fair for the woman not to get her fair share of a distribution. Is that the reason?
That's
New Jersey?
a very fair question. What was once that view of thought that the man was the one earning the money.
I know
that
it's
the man
old,
was the
old
one.
thinking.
That is gone in New Jersey,
Good.
and it's gone in most other states.
Good, good.
And but the remnants of that law still exist, and
Okay.
so any assets that are acquired during the course of a marriage, or the ability to pay spousal support, is really based on the concepts of how marriages were 30, 40 years ago, and they're applied to today's scenarios, where there are usually two-income households and a more modern type marriage.
I see.
So do you believe that there's other alternatives to litigation?
Of course.
Okay, good. So, and what situations?
You
And do you
don't
recommend
have to
them?
fight
Okay.
for
That's good.
everything, and you certainly shouldn't fight over dishes.
Okay.
But
Okay.
when it comes to the alternatives, I would say for the last 20 years that mediation of a divorce case has become a really popular way to resolve the dissolution of a marriage. And what mediation entails is it doesn't have to be very formal, and it's two parties. They meet with a mediator, and the mediator helps facilitate the settlement by seeking and eliciting information from the litigants as to what each of them wants, and then tries to make a deal. It doesn't always work, but it works in a lot of cases, and it's very important.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Is
it's okay.
mediation binding? What's the
No.
difference between
Okay.
mediation versus arbitration?
So mediation is not binding. So when parties go to mediation, what they decide or the outcome of mediation is not binding upon them as part of their divorce. If they were to choose to arbitrate, meaning that having a third party, not a judge, but a third party making that decision for them, that would be binding. And there are rules of arbitration. There has to be a written agreement, and it's its own animal. But both mediation and arbitration are very helpful in resolving issues outside the court system.
Two things. One, what is the background of a mediator? Are they lawyers? Are they judges?
That's a really good question as well. So in New Jersey, to be a mediator, you don't have to be anything.
Okay.
A person can be a mediator. A person with no
certification.
no certification. There is not really any state licensing of mediators, and so oftentimes. Usually
But are
they're
you saying that
attorneys.
both parties basically have to
Both
agree
parties.
to that person,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
I see.
And I would say that most mediators are attorneys or accountants.
Okay.
Or some type of financial
Professional,
planner.
that would make
Some
sense.
sort of professional, but there are those that are just mediators.
So my other question is, and this is really important for our viewers, they're going to want to know, what does it cost for somebody like you, to engage somebody like you, what is it going to cost, okay? Can you give us some idea? Is there money that has to be put down?
Okay.
You know,
Typically, what happens is that there is a retainer agreement in every divorce case. The rules of court provide that. And typically, what happens is I will send a written agreement to a prospective client, and it'll set forth in writing the terms of our professional relationship to each other, and it'll set forth an amount of money that has to be paid initially. It sets forth my hourly rate. It sets forth the hourly rate of others in my office, and it basically governs our professional relationship. And that's pretty much standard practice.
so
in
it's
the
not a
divorce
matter
industry.
of, well, this person has 10 million in assets, but this person only has $500,000 in assets, so the rate could be different based
I
upon...
charge the same hourly rate to all of my clients.
Okay, so however long it takes to go through, it's going to take, and they
Yes.
have to be agreeable to that, I see.
Is there any case you want to talk about that was the most unique to you or the most challenging without giving any
Well, I think-
No
specifics?
names.
No names.
No, I think that they're all really, really unique. But I particularly enjoy the cases where there are interesting financial issues combined with interesting custody issues. And I've had quite a few of those over the years, and I think that the complexity of the case is something that keeps me doing this. because I like to learn new things. I like to learn about other people, and it keeps things fresh for me.
What about the varieties of marriage today? We have civil unions, we have same-sex marriages, we have contractual agreements, things of that sort. How are you finding
The law
this?
does not discriminate against same-sex marriages or same-sex partnerships. I was involved maybe 15 years ago in one of the earliest dissolution of a civil union. And I found that to be very interesting. But when it's all said and done, they're just like any other couple. If you're a same-sex couple, you have the same issues, typically speaking, as a heterosexual couple.
I see.
And very often with same-sex partnerships, their assets are a little bit higher.
They could be.
They could
Sure,
be.
certainly. Certainly.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
people are interesting, and that's what makes family law so interesting,
Yeah.
because people are interesting.
Yeah, and it seems like you have a really good way with people too. I know,
Thank
like engaging with you prior to this interview was very nice and peaceful and pleasant and educational.
It sure was,
So,
yeah.
Well, I do recognize
Yeah.
that people put their faith in me, and they trust me, and I view it's my obligation to do the very best I can for them.
Yeah, and
That's something that really matters to me.
Yeah, and I could say Martin and I really understand that because that's how we feel when we work with our clients.
If you don't have trust, nobody's going to want to invest money with you. Nobody's going to want to really feel good about kind of like laying everything out on the table in their personal lives and being able to have you on their team, you know, and supporting them to get through an equitable divorce. So we applaud you for that, you know.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank
and
you for
what's the
having me.
best way for people to reach you?
The
Evan?
best way to reach me is calling me at my office. My office number is 973-403-6000. And if you don't want to call me, I do have email. It is eweinstein@familylawNJ.com. And just ask for Evan if you call, and I'll speak to you.
Well, that's really good to know. That
Now,
we have
you know,
good
you
numbers.
practice mainly up in the Short Hills,
My practice,
Oranges and that,
My
right?
practice is based in Essex County, but I travel all over northern New Jersey. I do come to southern New Jersey, but pretty much primarily the northern counties, Essex County, certainly Bergen County, Morris County, Union County, Somerset County, Middlesex County. Those are counties that I typically travel to.
and you know, because we have a minute or two, have you found that through the COVID environment, there's been an elevation in divorce or?
I would say this, there's certainly been an elevation in domestic violence cases because of the nature of that we're all confined to our homes, and that for so long people didn't have anywhere to go. And that caused tension within the home, and that led to a spike in domestic violence cases. As far as a traditional sort of divorce case, we're starting to see a trend upward because things are opening up. People have been struggling
Right.
for maybe a significant period of time, and people are now ready to move forward, and we'll just deal with things as they come.
So would you find that the majority of these cases are brought about because of economic issues, or are they just brought about because somebody was just cheating on somebody and they're just fed up and tired? Or what is it?
Generally speaking, I think that people choose to separate because of personal reasons. They typically don't do so for economic reasons, although it quickly becomes one of the primary issues in dispute. A marital fault is not a factor in someone's divorce.
I see. So if your wife hired some private investigator because she thought that you were cheating on her, and she has pictures of you, the judge isn't going to take any of that into account in terms of distribution, or?
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my wife knows that I would never cheat on her, Martin.
I never would think.
So-
Never.
But that aspect of a case is really not relevant for any of the financial issues. However,
See.
if a party dissipates marital assets, meaning spends a lot of money on the support of a third party, that may become an issue. But typically speaking, marital fault has very little bearing on any of the financial issues, although it may be relevant to custody issues.
I see, I see. All right, well, listen, Evan, we really appreciate the information that you have given our viewers, and I know Joanne is the same. We really appreciate you being here, and perhaps we can have you down again once things keep normalizing out there, right? So once again, just give everybody your phone number, and then we'll give ours as well.
My phone number is 973-403-6000, or you can reach me by email.
Sounds good. All right, I'm Joanne Morgano. I can be reached at 856-797-0200, extension 128.
And Martin Saltzman at 732-905-8100. Once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us on our It's Your Money show. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.